Hi everyone. Today we will discuss about one more topic in the toxicity studies, which includes clinical symptoms and management of organophosphorus compounds and their poisoning. So most of the organophosphorus compounds are commonly used as insecticides. Coming to the physical appearance, they are available as dust, granules, liquids, and they can be diluted in water. Even they can be burnt to make the smoke so that they will kill the insects. Organophosphorus, which are indicated as OPs, organophosphorus, they are usually colorless to brownish color and they are fruity smell, or else usually they will be no smell, odorless in their nature, and they are volatile to varying degree so that they can be sprayed or distributed as an aerosol and they can be inhaled. Coming to the uses of organophosphorus compounds, there are no clinical uses for these compounds, but they are mainly used for the agriculture insecticides, fungicides, for household garden sprays, for the flies, and for the insect sprays. Coming to the fatal dose of the organophosphorus compounds, so they are rated depending upon the LD50 value. LD50 is nothing but the dose at which 50% of the test population are being died. That we consider it as lethal dose. So that is the reason we are mentioning it as 50. 50% of the test population are being died. So if the LD50 value is 1 to 50 mg per kg, they are extremely toxic. If it is more than 51 to 500, we call it as highly toxic. Examples are diazinon, dimethiate, etc. Whereas for the moderately toxic, it ranges from 501 to 5000 mg. If it is more than 5000 mg, we call it as slightly toxic organophosphorus compounds. Example, abate, acephate, etc. So usually the treatment will be given with oximes and atropine. So even we start the treatment with this antidotes, there will be chances of death rate will be there. Coming to the classification of organophosphorus compounds, there are hundreds of organophosphorus compounds that are available. So depending upon the toxicity, like previous slide, they are being classified as highly toxic, which are used for agriculture insecticides, intermediate toxic, which are used as animal insecticides, whereas low toxicity drugs, they are used as a field sprays or household applications. Coming to the mechanism of organophosphorus compounds. So these organophosphorus compounds will block or inhibit the action of acetylcholinesterase enzyme. What is this acetylcholinesterase enzyme doing? Acetylcholine will be hydrolyzed by the acetylcholinesterase enzyme to form as choline and acetic acid. So the levels of acetylcholine will be decreased by the degradation by the acetylcholinesterase enzyme. But the organophosphorus compounds are blocking the hydrolyzing property of the acetylcholinesterase enzyme. So acetylcholine is not getting transferred to other form. The levels of acetylcholine are being increased. So what happens? This acetylcholine will be accumulated. It leads to the stimulation of our local receptors, which may lead to paralysis of nerves or muscles, which leads to the toxicity of our body. Coming to toxicokinetic properties, the ADME properties of a toxic substance. They can be absorbed by any route including the transdermal, transconjunctival, inhalations, gastrointestinal, gastromucosal, and through the direct injections. Once they are taken into our body, they show the action immediately within minutes to hours. In few cases, for few drugs, it may be the actions may be delayed, they may be seen within 12 hours. So we have seen that acetylcholine, increase in the acetylcholine levels ultimately lead to the paralysis of the muscles or nerves. So what are the different types of paralysis that are being done because of the organophosphorus poisoning? The type 1 acute cholinergic crisis, type 2 intermediate syndrome, type 3 is organophosphate induced delayed polyneuropathy. Coming to the clinical features in the type 1 acute cholinergic crisis, you can remember it as sludge, BBB, and dumbbells. So, sludge, S for salivation, L for lacrimation, U for urination, D for defecation or diaphoresis, excess of sweating, diaphoresis, and GE for gastric emesis. So, this is the sludge symptoms. Whereas coming to BBB, it's not blood-brain barrier here. To remember the symptoms, it is bronchonuria, excess of watery sputum production, bronchospasm, constriction of the bronchial muscles, bradycardia, decreased heart rate. When coming to the dumbbell symptoms, to remember, it is defecation and diaphoresis, urination, meiosis, bronchonuria, bronchospasm, bradycardia. Again, the BBB is repeating here. Then emesis, lacrimation, and salivation. To remember, you can remember as Lutch, BBB, and dumbbells. Apart from these symptoms, the nicotinic effects like fasciculations, weakness of the muscles, paralysis, and the CNS effects, central nervous system effects like central respiratory depression, lethargy, seizures, and coma may be the clinical features in the first stage. Coming to the clinical features of intermediate syndrome, weakness of muscles of respiration and the muscles of proximal limb, the cranial nerve will develop abnormalities, the decreased deep tendon reflexes. So, this condition will be developed during the intermediate syndrome, and after 24 to 48 hours, they will not find any association between the pesticide that is being taken and the syndrome that are developed, and these symptoms will be persisting for almost 14 to 20 days. If you start giving them the supportive care like ventilatory support, this problem can be resolved within 2 to 3 weeks. Coming to the clinical features of type 3 organophosphate induced delayed polyneuropathy. Lately we will see the weakness of the neurons, so we call it as delayed polyneuropathy. So after 2 to 3 weeks of this poisoning condition, the end parts will be developing the degeneration of axons. The distal degeneration of axons will happen. Then we will see the stalk and glove paresthesia. Usually the regions which are covered by stalk and globes, they will have the abnormal sensation, that is stalk and globe paresthesia. So that is the distal parts, the hands and feet are the distal parts, and we will have the weakness in that particular region. A person may develop bilateral food drop. There are more chances of developing acute cholinergic toxicity because the organophosphorus are developing the increasing the levels of acetylcholine. So cholinergic toxicity may be developed. Recovery may be within 6 to 12 months. And there are chances of developing the spastic ataxia. That is nothing but physical coordination will be not there. Coming to the overall clinical features of organophosphorus poisoning, the muscarinic receptors will show cardiovascular effects like bradycardia and hypotension, decreased heart rate and decreased BP. In the respiratory, we can see rhinorrhea, increased mucus production, bronchonuria, bronchospasm, bronchonuria, decreased respiratory cycles, cough, bronchospasm, and GI include nausea, vomiting, eyes, blurred vision, cardiovascular tachycardia, hypertension. So all these are the clinical features or symptoms of the organophosphorus poisoning. Coming to the diagnosis of organophosphate poisoning, the first test we are going to do is depression of cholinesterase activity. We will check whether the cholinesterase activity is being decreased or not. If that cholinesterase activity is decreased at minimum 50% than the normal range, that indicates the organophosphate poisoning. And the second one is depression of plasma cholinesterase level. If the normal plasma cholinesterase level is less than the normal range, then we can conclude that a person may have organophosphate poisoning. And the next one is p-nitrophenol test. P-nitrophenol is a metabolite of organophosphates. So if the urine sample of that particular patient have the nitrophenol in their urine sample, it indicates that organophosphates are present in the body. They are being poisoned with the organophosphates. Then the next one is TLC. We will collect a person who is suspected to be having organophosphate poisoning. We will take a sample of the vomit or the gastric aspirate and we will check it for the presence of the organophosphates in that by using the TLC method. And then next one is ancillary investigations, which are supporting test can be done for the primary investigation. They are ancillary investigations which includes leukocytosis, chest X-ray, HPLC, CT scan. We will monitor the electrolytes and perform the ECG. Coming to the treatment during the organophosphate poisoning, as I told previously, the treatment for the poisoning conditions will be general. So go through the video of general principles of poisoning of mine. So coming to the acute poisoning condition with the organophosphorus, first we will do the decontamination. Then we can do the treatment with antidotes of atropine and oxams, which will act against the acetylcholine. And we will provide the supportive measures like providing IV fluids, monitoring the vitals. These are supportive measures. Then we will prevent the further exposure, and the treatment should be given for the pregnant victim separately so that it will not spread to the fetus. During chronic poisoning condition of organophosphates, we will remove the patient from the source of exposure, from where he is being exposed to the organophosphates, and we have to provide the supportive measures, and depending upon the symptoms of the patient, we have to give the treatment. Coming to the autopsy features, the external features of the autopsy indicates the odor, garlicky or kerosene-like odor, frothing at the mouth or nose, you can see in the image. Cyanosis of extremities, nothing but formation of blue color in the extremities like hands and feet, and the pupils will be constricted. If you see the internal features of the autopsy, we can see the GI tract will be congested, and can smell the contents like garlic or kerosene like odor. We can see the pulmonary edema and cerebral edema and generalized visceral congestion.